Alright, so this is going to be my review of Godzilla, history's greatest monster. Now, this comic is actually a huge omnibus collected edition thingamabob of the Just Godzilla title that IDW published. It was the series right after Kingdom of Monsters, and it was the in-between between Kingdom of Monsters and Rulers of Earth. So this was just called Godzilla. I don't know why they added history's greatest monster. I guess not to confuse people. So, Godzilla, history's greatest monster. This story, like I said, is taking after the events of Kingdom of Monsters, which actually, if you don't have to you literally do not have to read Kingdom of Monsters to understand this. I mean, it kind of helps a little bit, but you could literally read this and not even need to read Kingdom of Monsters. Kind of like how you can read Rulers of Earth and not need to read this title or Kingdom of Monsters, which I don't fully condone at all. Kingdom of Monsters is a crock of shit. But this title it's okay. The whole thing was collected in a $30 trade, and for $30, I feel like I could have spent that $30 on something better. I really could have, because I feel like, just because it was a Godzilla. And I hear, like, mixed things, like, oh, it's pretty good, you know, it's written by Dwayne Drazinski, he's done some cool stuff at Marvel. I was like, oh, okay, maybe this will be good. It's okay at best. It's not the greatest thing. You know, Rulers of Earth, it is not. I will say that. Which, by the way, Rulers of once again, go pick up Rulers of Earth in trade. They got the first four volumes out, and the fifth one's coming out in April. So, highly recommend Rulers of Earth. Now, having said that, you know, there are some cool things, but let me talk about the plot in general. The plot is about a guy whose name is Boxer. He's a former mercenary Marine. We don't exactly know. We don't go into his backstory that much. But after, you know, his daughter is killed by Godzilla, and then, since now he's bodyguard for someone, and he loses this woman's daughter to Godzilla in another attack, he decides, you know what, I'm going to gather my some old friends, and we're going to go hunt down monsters and capture them, but we're going to do it as mercenaries, and we're going to get paid for it, $7 billion a monster. And we've got other characters, one named Irv, whose husband was killed by Kumunga, and then we have Claire, whose entire platoon was killed by Batra. Yeah. And while this is going on, we get the arrival of the space monsters, which the space monsters consist of Space Godzilla, Gigan, Hedorah, and Monster X, aka Kaiser Ghidorah. You're probably wondering, well, where the hell's King Ghidorah? Well, why did you go to Kaiser and why did you skip King Ghidorah and just go straight to Kaiser? Here's the thing. King Ghidorah showed up in Kingdom of Monsters as one of, like, they went with the GMK route. I personally believe just because they wanted to they just wanted to use King Ghidorah for the sake of using him, and that's literally what it felt like as I read that story of that little section of Kingdom of Monsters. And they just said, oh, he's just, you know, evil Earth monster, which I call BS on, because, yeah, I know that was the story for him in GMK, but we all know him best as a space monster. Well, yeah, and time-traveling Dorat thing, which I don't even know, so they just... And you're also wondering, well, Kaiser and King Ghidorah are technically the same thing, and to which I say, yes, they are. But I think what IDW was trying to do, especially what Dwayne Drazinski was trying to do, was like, IDW's done this before, where they take two different characters that are one and the same and make them two different. Kind of like in the Transformers comic earlier on, when Megatron and Galvatron were two different characters, although I think... Now they've said that Galvatron was just Megatron from the future. I think that's what they were trying to say. I don't know. I haven't read Transformers comic. I haven't read the current Transformers stuff in a little while, so I could be wrong. So they went with that with this, is that King Ghidorah is its own monster, and Kaiser Ghidorah is its own monster as well. Which they just instantly, by the way, the media just instantly calls him Kaiser Ghidorah, just right off the bat. Like they just name him Kaiser Ghidorah. Like, I can understand some of the, like, they just name the monsters instantly. I want to, like, in one of these comics, I really want to know who comes up, like, who do they designate these monsters' names? Like, who's the guy or who's the group that designates the monster names? I really want to know that person and how he got his job. He or she got his or her job. But anyway, like I said, there are some good points, but let me talk a few other things before getting this before advising you whether or not to pick up this comic. The artwork's not great. The artwork is not great at all. The human character, it's from the same artist who did the Rodan one-shot in the Godzilla Legend story, which is probably the worst the worst of the Godzilla Legend story. The two best I would suggest, as I did when I did the Godzilla Legends review, the two best ones are the Anguirus and Hedorah story. Those two are fantastic. The Rodan story is by far the worst. And the artist in here, Simon Gale, I think is his name, does the artwork in here. And for the most part, it doesn't look as bad as it did in the Rodan story, but some of the monsters just look horrible. Like Rodan looks like the worst. Rodan looks the worst out of all the monsters. Like you can, and Godzilla's not too great either. But the other monsters don't look half that bad. But Rodan and Godzilla just look awful. They just look awful. I'm sorry. Anyway, and the monster fights aren't that great either. Like Rodan, you get a fight between Rodan and Titanosaurus. It's only for like 2 pages. And then you have a fight between Mothra and Monster X, and that fight just ends real quick because it's just Mothra sitting on a building and then just gets shot by Monster X. I think the best fights in here are the fights between Godzilla and Space Godzilla, and then when Godzilla's fighting, and Godzilla and Mechagodzilla are fighting Hedorah, and then Godzilla versus, and Godzilla and Kaiser Ghidorah's final fight. Those are pretty good. There's even some cool fights that the story is that the kaiju on Earth are kind of throwing a shit fit because they know the space monsters are coming, and Godzilla actually rallies the Earth monster, the other monsters of Earth together. Like he rallies together Mothra, Batra, Rodan, Titanosaurus, Anguirus, and Kumonga. Those are the only current monsters as of this time that were showing up. Rulers of Earth showed the rest of them up, but for right now, it was just those 6-7 monsters for the time being, and yeah, they go out to fight the monsters. Like Rodan and Anguirus go out to fight Gigan, which is a pretty decent fight. That's pretty good. Rodan and Anguirus team up to fight Gigan. Titanosaurus and Batra team up to fight Space Godzilla in London, which, for all intents and purposes, they get their ass kicked. Like, did anyone think Batra and Titanosaurus were going to hold their own against Space Godzilla? No. And then you had Kumonga and Mechagodzilla. Kiryu, I should say that this is Kiryu at this point. This is how they introduced Kiryu, by the way. Mechagodzilla, Kiryu and Kumonga team up to fight Monster X. It goes about as well as you think it does. Yeah. But the human characters aren't that great either. We've got the main character, Boxer, just gets so one-note. He's like, I want to kill Godzilla. And then you have his son, Harrison, and his son, Harrison, doesn't talk. Not because you think because he's mute, really. You think because he was born mute, but no. He just doesn't talk because he doesn't want to talk to his father. They don't explain why he never wants to talk to his father, even though he said, I would talk again when I saw him again. It doesn't explain that. And I was thinking, and then they did the stupidest explanation for it, saying that, I haven't talked in so long, it was written in my DNA. And then at the last page of the story, you see him talking perfectly with the remaining characters. You also have the other character, Claire, who's a total bitch because she blames Boxer for abandoning him after a Godzilla attack, which apparently that didn't happen at all because he spent hours looking for her. Yeah, the human characters aren't that great. They're not. This comic it just left me going meh the entire time. That's what I felt like. It was just a meh book. Like, is this worth $30? I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, probably not. It's not worth $30. Unless you're a diehard Godzilla fan, I would say skip it and go right to Rulers of Earth. Again, that's a comic you don't need to read Kingdom of Monsters or this to continue on reading. But there are some cool things, like I said, when the monsters all are rallying together to fight the space monsters. That's pretty cool for what we see of it. And it's kind of, I always like it when the other monsters get spotlight, especially like I thought it was so cool to see Batra and Titanosaurus fight Space Godzilla. I thought that was kind of awesome, even though it was real quick and they both got the shit kicked out of them. And then it was nice to see Kumonga and Kiryu fight Monster X. Again, they got their ass kicked, but hey. And I also like that the lesser monster. I will say this. I really did like that the lesser monsters did get some spotlight. Kumonga never gets a lot of spotlight. Batra doesn't get a lot of spotlight, and Titanosaurus doesn't get a lot of spotlight. So the fact that these guys got some spotlight to them, I thought was really cool. I thought that was a really cool added element to the story. But once again, do I recommend this? Only if you're a real diehard Godzilla fan. I would recommend skipping this trade. I still feel bad for spending $30 on it, but hey, what are you gonna do? Anyway, it's not. I know I'm making it sound like it's terrible. I really don't want to. I really don't want to make it sound like it's a terrible comic. It's not the most abysmal thing I've read. God, no, I've read some worse things than this. And for what it's worth, there are some good points to it. But I don't know. It's just the human characters weren't that all interesting. The monster fights are just some of them are ranging from decent to disappointing. Just a few elements here and there that just made me go, it was okay. It was just totally okay. It was there. It was just there being okay. Anyway, once again, hope you all enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys later.